What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be walking you through exactly how the Create a Class system works in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. As always with these early videos, big thank you to Activision for flying me out so I could capture this gameplay early for you guys and share this information. So as you guys may or may not already know, the Pick-10 system is not returning to Modern Warfare, and we're going back to more of a traditional Create a Class system that we're used to back from the original Modern Warfare trilogy. So the basic layout is you choose a primary weapon and up to 5 attachments on that primary, a secondary weapon with once again up to 5 attachments on that, one perk from each of the 3 different tiers, a lethal equipment, and a tactical equipment. And it's really as simple as that. It's not like the Pick-10 system where you can have wildcards so you can stack up on 2 perks from the same tier, or extra attachments or anything, although the attachments have changed quite a bit this time around. Even though it might seem like a lot to have 5 attachments on a weapon, attachments in this game will have upsides as well as downsides. So it may not always be in your best interest for your playstyle to actually have 5 attachments on your gun. You may be better off with just 1 or 2. Now, when it comes to primary weapons, we have all the standard categories like assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, and sniper rifles, but I also want to point out that shotguns are primaries in this game, and that's been something where we have kind of gone back and forth a little bit with Call of Duty. In some Call of Duty games, shotguns are primaries, and in others they are secondaries, but in this game, they are primaries. Additionally, just like with Call of Duty Ghosts, we do have the marksman rifle category, whereas in a lot of other Call of Duty games, the marksman rifles would actually be put into the sniper category, so there is a little bit more of a differentiation there. As for secondaries, currently in the build of the game that we got to play, we only have pistols as well as launchers, and it is interesting to note, there is no combat knife. There is no dedicated melee weapon, at least in this build. I do anticipate we'll be seeing something like that in the full build of the game, but as of right now, there are no melee weapons. So now let's move on to the perks, and starting it off with the tier 1 perks, we have Double Time, which will triple the duration of your super sprint, and also when you get a kill, it will immediately recharge your stamina on your super sprint. So for those of you guys that don't know, the standard sprint is unlimited in this game, but there's also a super sprint which allows you to sprint faster, with the trade-off being a much slower sprint out time. So this perk is really designed around those extremely aggressive players that want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. Next up we have EOD, and with this you take reduced damage from non-killstreak explosives as well as fire, and you're able to hack enemy claymores, proximity mines, and C4. So this is kind of like Flak Jacket from the past, but combined with like a form of engineer. It's a really interesting perk. We haven't seen anything quite like this with this combination. And it is also really interesting that it will not protect you from those killstreak explosives. After that, we have Scavenger, which is super straightforward. This will allow you to resupply ammo from dead players. It is worth noting this does not replenish your equipment, only ammo for your gun. Next up we have Tracker, and with this, enemies will leave behind trails, their footstep trails, as they move around the map, which do fade away as they continue to move. And also, death markers will now appear for you. Those little skulls you see when your teammates die, those are now attached to this perk. You won't be seeing those if you don't have this perk equipped. Additionally, with this perk, your crouch walking speed will be increased by 30%. After that one, we have Tune Up, and with this one, this increases the charge rate of your field upgrades by 50%. Now, if you guys want to know more about the field upgrades and all of the field upgrades we had access to, I did a really detailed video on that covering it yesterday, and I will leave a link to that down in the description below. So those are all the tier 1 perks. Now let's move on to tier 2, and first up we have Ghost, and Ghost is going to be very powerful in this game. With this, you're going to be undetectable by UAVs, radar drones, heartbeat sensors, and High Alert. And don't worry, if you don't know what High Alert is, that's going to be one of the tier 3 perks, and we will be getting to that. On top of this, it also somewhat counters the Tracker perk. It will hide those death markers of the enemies that you kill, which people with Tracker will be able to see. Now, a couple other things to mention with the Ghost perk. First off is you do not have to be on the move for this to be activated like we've seen in a lot of recent Call of Duty games. If you have Ghost on your class, you will never be showing up due to a UAV or a personal radar. Also, I did want to mention that at this point, I am not 100% sure if this will hide you from an advanced UAV, since nobody was earning advanced UAVs to my knowledge at this event, or at least in the games that I played, there were no advanced UAVs called in, and therefore I just can't confirm if Ghost works against it at this point. This brings us to our second tier 2 perk, and this is Hardline, and with this, your kill streaks will cost 1 less kill. And at the event, I think this is what most people were using because you can get that personal UAV at just 2 kills if you're using Hardline. Moving on to the next one, this one has a lot of people concerned, and this is called Kill Chain. With this one, it takes kill streaks back to the Modern Warfare 2 days, and any kill streaks earned in your current life will earn kill credit for the other kill streaks. So if you're playing the game, you earn an airstrike, for instance, you call that in and it gets 2 kills for you. Those 2 kills will contribute towards your next kill streak as long as it's all within the same life. So it's a pretty simple perk, and like I said, a lot of people are concerned. I did want to throw my initial 2 cents in on this perk. I really don't think it's going to be that bad, primarily because some of the mid to lower range streaks aren't very good, or at least in the state that we played, they are very risky to call in and they generally don't do too well. And therefore, I don't think we're going to run into the same situation we saw in Modern Warfare 2, where you get a Predator missile that gets your Harrier, then your Harrier gets your Chopper Gunner. I don't think it's going to be quite as simple as that, and honestly, I would much rather be using Hardline or Ghost within this tier of perks. Also, since I know a lot of people are going to ask, I don't know if this will end up contributing to a nuke. We have no real information on the nuke. The only thing we saw was in the trailer. It looks like there's going to be a nuke returning. If there is a nuke kill streak returning, though, I really do hope that this kill chain doesn't contribute towards that. But that's Kill Trade. Now let's move on to Overkill, which is the same overkill that we're used to. With this, it enables you to have 2 primary weapons on your class, rather than a primary and a secondary. And this just leaves us with one last perk in the Tier 2 category, and this is Restock. And with this, every 30 seconds, your equipment will be replenished if you use it. It won't stack new equipment on top if you haven't used it, but let's just say you throw a frag grenade. Every 30 seconds, that frag grenade will recharge. So finally, let's get into the Tier 3 perks. First up, we have Amped. And with Amped, this one gives you faster weapon swap and also faster rocket reload speed. This perk is a really niche sort of a perk that's really just designed to go on those classes that are made for taking down kill streaks. After that, we have Battle Hardened, which is kind of like Tac Mask from the past. With this, enemy flash, stuns, and EMP effects will be reduced on your character. Moving on to Cold Blooded, with this one, you're undetectable by AI targeting systems and thermal optics, and also you're immune to the snapshot grenades, which we'll have a quick look at the snapshot grenades towards the end of the video. But next we have High Alert, and with this, your vision will pulse when enemies outside of your field of view are looking at you. So this is like the Instincts perk from the past. You will get a little bit of a yellow glow around the edges of your screen when somebody sees you and is looking at you from behind and they're not in your field of view. And I did find this to be very helpful in this build since we didn't have a mini-map unless you had a UAV or personal UAV up. Although it doesn't give you too much information, it just lets you know somebody's looking at you. Also, just wanted to remind you, this is completely countered by the Ghost perk. If the enemy is using Ghost and they're looking at your back, you won't get any indication at all. Next, we have Shrapnel, and with this one, you will spawn with an extra piece of lethal equipment, and also, when you deal explosive damage to enemies, it will take them longer to heal from that explosive damage. This seems like it's going to be a bit of a trolley perk, and I think generally people aren't going to like it, but at the same time, it's more so just annoying than ridiculously powerful. So finally for perks, we have Spotter, and with Spotter, you can see enemy equipment, field upgrades, and kill streaks through walls, which is kind of like the Engineer perk of the past. However, the interesting part about this is you can mark those things for your team by looking at them and just aiming down sights. So if you just point your sights at those things through walls, it will then allow your teammates to see those as well. And I think this is actually a very interesting idea. I actually really like the sounds of this. I feel like it's going to give this perk a lot more utility than it would if it just worked for yourself, and it will help contribute to team play quite a bit as well. So those are all the perks that we currently have in the game. It is possible we'll see some changes or additions once we get to the full build of the game. But now let's move into the lethal equipment. And honestly, if you look at the list here, it's nothing we haven't seen before. We've got the frag grenade, the Semtex grenade, Molotov cocktail, claymore, throwing knife, C4, thermite, and proximity mine. Proximity mine is kind of like a bouncing Betty from Black Ops 2, where if you go prone underneath it, you will avoid all damage. Now for the tacticals, on the other hand, we do have a couple new things or changes to things that we've seen in the past that I wanted to mention. Of course, we do have the staples like flash, smoke, and stun, but we also have the stim, which isn't quite like the stim from Black Ops 4, it's more like the stim from Infinite Warfare. And with this, when you take damage, you can pop that stim as your equipment. You will inject yourself, and this will immediately trigger your healing. It's also worth noting that you can use the stim shot twice per life, whereas with all of the other equipment here, it's just once per life, unless of course you're using that restock perk, which will allow you to restock all of your equipment. Now we also have the decoy grenade returning, which you can throw out and it will sound like gunfire, and also it will show up on the radar if they happen to have a UAV or personal UAV up, and most likely it will show that dot on the compass for them as well. Then we have the gas grenade, which is pretty similar to the gas grenade in the past, although it is worth noting this one does activate immediately on impact. It doesn't have like a bit of a cooking time or a cooldown time. The moment it hits something, it explodes into a cloud of gas. This brings us to the snapshot grenade, which is a brand new piece of equipment, and I just wanted to show off exactly what it does here. You can actually see these previews in the menu, and as you can see, you throw this out there, it goes off, and if there's an enemy within its proximity when it goes off, it will actually tag them and they will be glowing green for a short period of time through walls. Keep in mind, like I said earlier, this is countered by the cold-blooded perk, so if they have cold-blooded, they will not be marked by the snapshot grenade. And finally, in the tactical category, this leaves us with the heartbeat sensor, which is a little tablet you can pull out. When you do that, one of your hands is tied up, and therefore you can't aim down sight. You can only hip fire, and it will show you a rough general direction of enemies that are very close to you and in front of you. Keep in mind, this is also countered by the ghost perk, so if they have ghosts, they will not show up on this heartbeat sensor. And really, you have to be so close with this heartbeat sensor, plus it takes your aim down sight ability away while you're using it. I just don't see this equipment being used at all. So with that actually covers it for how you create a class in Modern Warfare, as well as all of the known create a class items so far, with the exceptions of attachments, which will be a completely separate video since Gunsmith is so massive. I did also want to point out that your kill streaks are not tied to individual class setups like we've seen in some Call of Duties in the past. When you choose your kill streaks, those are just the kill streaks for the game, regardless of which class setup you're using. And the same thing goes for those field upgrades. Those aren't tied to individual classes, those are tied to your character. But with that, we're going to wrap up today's video on the create a class system in Modern Warfare. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about them dropping the Pick-10 system and returning to this more traditional sort of a create a class system? Personally, I do prefer Pick-10, but I'm very open to this system. I do like the fact that with this system, there are clear trade-offs. There's no wild cards so that you can stack two really powerful perks from the same tier together. But at the same time, I really did like the versatility of Pick-10. So I'm kind of torn on this, but I'm definitely open to this change. And I really don't think I'll have any problems whatsoever with the overall way that they decided to handle Create a Class. Maybe I'll have some issues with individual items within Create a Class, but the class system itself seems just fine to me. Just a quick reminder, if you guys want to check out what those field upgrades are and how they work, I will be leaving that link down in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more Modern Warfare content if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.